Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for coming out on this brisk Sunday morning. It seems like round two with the brisk Sunday morning. So thanks for joining us. My name is Kathleen Janis, and I am a member of the Westminster Community Partner Team, and I lead the St. David's team. So we are really, really pleased this morning to have leadership from St. David's Center for Child and Family Development. And as many of you know, they have one of their locations right here in our building on the top floor of the new part of our structure here. And so we're going to hear more about that as well as some other things. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is just a tiny bit about the social justice forums. They're built around a theme every year. And this year the theme is, I'm going to read this, building solidarity together, walking alongside God's people, striving for a more just world, acting courageously to transform social systems and relationships. As many of you know, as I mentioned, St. David's has a location here. And this morning we're going to learn more about St. David's work with parents and caregivers living with mental health diagnoses to help ensure that every child gets off to a good start. First, we're going to hear from Julie Shortall, who is currently CEO of St. David's, and she has been with St. David's for 36 years, very impressive, and has had roles in direct service as well as project management and now, of course, leadership. We are going to hear reflections on solidarity from Sarah Willem-Garbers, who is the Donor Relations Manager and previously served at Meeting House Church and has a background in higher education. And then third, we're going to hear from Kimberly Gascoigne, who has been with St. David's for 13 years, 10 of which she served as a home visitor in the Healthy Families Program. Before we get going, a couple of logistical items. First of all, I'm intentionally on a mic because we are live streaming, and every Sunday we have people attending via live stream. And the only way they can hear any of this is if we talk into a mic. So if you have a question when we do a Q&A at the end, we're going to take questions at the end. If you have a question, raise your hand, and Ed is going to have a mic, and he's going to make sure that everybody can hear your question. If you are on the live stream, please put your question into the comment section. We're going to be monitoring that, and then we'll read it out loud so, again, everybody can hear your question. As part of our effort to promote respectful conversations, the social justice team has established guidelines for these forums, and you can see some of that on the screen. I want to call out equity of voices. This is our commitment to having a respectful Q&A session. Equity of voices, we benefit from hearing a variety of voices, so let's all just leave room for a variety of perspectives. But I'm going to give you just a minute to read through these so we're all sort of familiar with them. All right, before we get started, would you please share a prayer with me? Holy God of justice, breathe into us a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us to listen and learn. Help us to engage with mindfulness. Guide our speech and our self-awareness so we may honor the divine in all people. Amen. And now I'll hand things off to Julie. Oh, Sarah. Sarah's going to start. There we go.
Thank you so much. Well, hi, I'm Sarah Willem-Garbers, and I am so pleased to be able to be with you today and to be a part of the St. David's Center team. As you heard, so today we're going to talk about what it looks like to ensure the best start for every child, and particularly focusing on the work of parents and caregivers who have mental health diagnoses and some interventions there. But as we move into this, I wanted to just bring us a little bit into the broader conversation that you all are having as a church community this spring, it's spring semester, but it feels like winter, a little bit about solidarity. So where I wanted to start us is, that story from the Bible of Hagar and how Hagar flees into the wilderness because of the abuse that she has experienced at the hands of Abram and Sarah. And if you've heard this story before, or if you haven't, you'll get to hear one of my favorite stories from the Bible. Because what happens is, in that space, as a woman who is a foreigner, who is enslaved, and who is oppressed, God shows up to her. And she is one of the earliest people we have recorded in Scripture as naming God. And what does she name God? She names God El Roi. And El Roi means the God who sees me. For me, this image of God is so powerful when we think about the work of solidarity. God, as we speak about in Christianity, becomes embodied in Jesus and shows up face to face with us, right? That's the work of solidarity then that we carry on, is that of a God who sees us in the midst of whatever our stories, whatever our backgrounds, and invites and calls us to be a people who see and cognize the humanity of the person before us. So to do the work of solidarity, of compassion, of justice, right, isn't about handouts or about any of us being better than, but it's about the deep affirmation or reaffirmation and commitment to the seeing of the image of God in one another. Now, as Kathleen mentioned, my background is in pastoral ministry. And over the entirety of my life up to now, I've seen many different nonprofits do work. I myself, as a kid, grew up in a family where we were recipients of many acts of compassion and care, and we grew up on welfare. And I can tell you from my own story that not every social service agency or every nonprofit equally is committed to seeing people. And since I started at St. David's this summer, one of the most beautiful things that I've been able to bear witness to, and maybe some of you've seen if you've encountered the work of St. David's at the Harmon Center or beyond, is the commitment to seeing people, to building relationships that nurture the development of every child and family. And so we're so excited and grateful to be able to come today as a part of this work of solidarity to share some of the story of how we are committed to trying to work that out, and in hopes that it can be a dialogical encouragement to all of us to keep on following the God who sees. So with that, I wanted to invite up Julie, who is the CEO and has been a longtime member and leader of St. David's Center, and is really the reason that I wanted to come to St. David's Center, because of how she shows up and leads. So let's welcome Julie as you come up and share.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, that's hard to follow, Sarah. You could talk all day and I'd just sit here and listen. Thank you for having me here today. I want to acknowledge a couple people here in the audience. Jim Eppel is St. David's Center's board member representing Westminster. We always have a Westminster board member, and so grateful for Jim's board membership and the wisdom he brings from a career in the healthcare, leading in the healthcare market, since so much of our work is funded by healthcare. I also want to acknowledge Ed, who I worked with many years ago at, we were partners when he was a social worker at Hennepin County, did lots of good work together. So just the relationships run deep here in this community. So I'm going to try to just be 10 minutes long, because I really want you to hear from Kimberly and how our work comes to life. I think it will, if you aren't already proud of the partnership you've and the generosity you've offered to St. David's Center in being able to be housed in this beautiful church community and be one of your key partners. If you aren't already proud of that, you will be even more proud as a result of hearing about this important work. So my goal in my 10 minutes is to get you up to speed on where St. David's Center has been, what we've accomplished, where we're going. I think it's very public information that we have purchased the YWCA across the street. And I want you to hear what's inside of that, the why and the vision for it, and how it is so interconnected to the work we're doing here, and how your investment in St. David's Center in downtown Minneapolis to have space here made that possible. So just reminding us of St. David's Center's work. We have a mission to build relationships that nurture the development of every child and family. And we do so through 4 core service areas: early childhood education, early intervention and treatment. That's our biggest body of work. You can see of 6,500 children, parents, and individuals with special needs served, 4,400 received that service from us. Community-based disability services, that's our staff members coming alongside families who have children with enduring special needs as they grow. And then parent and professional training and consultation. So just moving through that, just regrounding you in who we are as a full organization. I'll say now 3 locations. We serve in 30 different co-located partner sites and in hundreds of family homes throughout the community. 600 staff members on our team. And this body of work, I'll just highlight this slide real quick, since our biggest body of work is this early intervention and treatment. It's this range of services. We think of it as preventative intervention for families who have risk factors in their lives as they come into parenting, all the way to the most intensive 5-day-a-week day treatment work. So children who have significant trauma or are on the autism spectrum, who aren't in their early years, who aren't successful in other settings, we have an alternative way to intervene with those families and children and give them a intensive experience with a clinical team that really helps set them up for the future. So that's our the 6 of the children served. This is the kind of biggest body of work that we do with children and families. Our revenue, I think that's always a question. How do you fund this important work? 55% of our revenue is government funding, which of course has us a little bit nervous right now. Medicaid, of that 55%, around 50% is Medicaid. So, and that tells you a little bit about who we're serving. Families qualify for Medicaid in 2 ways to receive our services, either due to poverty or due to their child having a developmental disability. Excuse me. So that's a big piece of our work. 26% commercial insurance, 7% private pay, and then 11%, those 7 and 4, is a combination of our charitable revenue. Both the charitable revenue that we raise annually, around $3 million annually, and then to support the work, and then another 4% is for capital, running a capital campaign and pulling that down as we launch our site across the street. So 2024 strategic accomplishments. I just want to say a little bit, just to do a quick look back for you in terms of what St. David's Center accomplished. We think about our strategic plan as falling under 6 big strategies. And so I'll just highlight a couple examples under each of the pairs of strategies. So the first 2 are leadership and innovation. We feel called as an organization to lead in the community and to really foster a culture of innovation across our clinical work. And that looks a lot of different ways. And a couple of examples I'd highlight is that we've been called to consult with other agencies in the community. We have a partnership with Hennepin County, their child protection supervisor team. They invited us in to be in a therapeutic consultation relationship with our supervisors. Think of that team as just delivering services to some of the most heartbreaking, challenging situations in our community, seeing trauma over and over again. And their wise leader at Hennepin County said, you need some consultation as a supervisor team to really help ground you in mental health work so that your staff you can offer that to your staff. So that would be an example of what that consultation looks like in the community. Our next strategies are partnership and expansion. We said in our strategic plan 5 years ago, we said if we grow, we first need to grow in partnership with the community. We need to think about who we're in partnership with and really ask, what's next? What do we need to do next as partners in the community? And then secondly, we looked at the community and knew that we would be called to grow. So developed a plan for expansion in the Twin Cities and perhaps in outstate. And an example of this in this last year is that we have co-located mental health services in both Osseo and Hopkins school districts. And both districts said, we need more. We have so many kids who are not successful right now in their elementary school classrooms, and can you help us do more? So we expanded our and deepened our partnership in both Osseo and Hopkins schools. And then sustainability and infrastructure. And these two goals are simply a nod and for the community, but for you to know as the community that supports us that we're giving a lot of attention to how to be a sustainable organization into the future and how to set up an infrastructure that really, as we expand, that really supports that kind of expansion. So with 75% of our revenue coming from healthcare, we need to have a robust electronic health record, and that would just be an example. And use data to help guide decision making. Who are we serving, and what do they need from us as a result of that? All right, so I'm going to move forward. Just a word about Harmon Center. I would just want you to know, with your deep investment and interest in our work, thank you, at the in Westminster, I would want you to know what's happened in Harmon Center. And so first of all, Harmon Center, just a reminder, that is a center focused on child and family well-being for those who have faced adversity. We put that in our proposal. I see Jane here today. Jane remembers that. We put that in our proposals 8 years ago when we were invited in, and that work is alive and well here. About 85% of our families, 91% of our families are on Medicaid. So you see that's very much a group of families living in poverty. And 85% of the families served here are families from the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. So just a community that's been marginalized in the past, and just feel welcomed into this building and into our organization. 1,800 served on site here in the 7 years we've worked here. And as a result of the work that comes out, the staff that office here, 2,700 served. And it's children with complex behavioral health needs and parents who need partner on the pathway. And just this beautiful continuum of services, from assessment to outpatient mental health, OT and speech, and then our day treatment classrooms here on site. So concerns for our community. I just want to turn the corner and tell you a little bit about why these next couple slides that I'll do in about 2 minutes are just, will tell you why we even considered growth. We have deep end concerns and growing concerns for the community. These statistics on this slide show you, and I'll highlight the top two for the sake of time. 2,100 children on St. David's Center's early intervention wait list. So that continuum of services, we have 2,100 kids that need, and parents that are desperate for their need for services. Kids who are not successful in other settings, kids who've been expelled from preschool, kids whose behavior and development is a mystery and challenging to the families, and families who want to get their kids on the right trajectory. And 1 in 5 children in Minnesota has a diagnosed mental health concern, yet close to half of them won't receive services. So and we see this growing issue in the community of other providers saying we need to shrink what we're doing or close because we're in this business that has so little margin, or the services don't pay for themselves. Medicaid pays for about 70 to 80% of what it costs us to provide the services. So an organization like St. David's Center has philanthropic arm of our work that can help fund that. But there's many organizations that don't have that. So we are called to stay at this work. So, and the things that concern us long term, poor, high school, higher ed, or higher special education costs, higher dropout rates, higher juvenile delinquency rates, higher healthcare costs. All of those things are a result of kids staying in this fight or flight, or not being understood, not being seen and supported during the years when their brains are most malleable, and we can make a huge difference. So our vision for 2025 and beyond, we purchased the YWCA building, as I said, as a result of having a presence in downtown, really growing our services here, and with recognition that there's this much need in the community. So when the YWCA building went on the market, we just asked ourselves, is it affordable? Can we purchase it? Could it be an opportunity for us to serve those 2,100 kids and expand what we're doing at Westminster? And indeed, we had a donor that helped us with the purchase, and did a good due diligence and developed a master plan or a conceptual fit plan to see if what we wanted to do in the building fit, and decided as a board and leadership team that it was the right decision to move forward. So our expansion for 2025, given this opportunity, is to complete a Nicollet Mall. We're not calling it the YWCA building anymore. We're calling it St. David's Nicollet Mall site. Complete a master plan process, raise capital funds, and launch a phased renovation plan. We're in a $35 million capital campaign, so not a small one. We have about just shy of $9 million in right now, and we'll be phasing our renovation as the funds come in. We'll continue to access to child and family services at our early intervention center in Westminster Presbyterian Church. We have every intent. We're in our 10-year lease. We have every intent of staying that full 10 years and evaluating what we'd keep here as a result. This has just been a beautiful partnership, and we'd love to stay in that partnership longer term. We are also working with Hennepin County and other providers to think about co-creating a family resource center right on site in the Nicollet Mall site. Given it's 100,000 square feet, and we can ideate about taking this unutilized fitness center or underutilized and really turn it into a thriving children and family service building. We're starting to talk with Hennepin County about, would there be opportunity for us to have, financial workers, WIC workers, there's a national trend toward these family resource centers embedded in nonprofits. So super excited about that. And then we have some other expansion as well. For the sake of time, I'm just going to keep moving forward. And just say that our partnerships are key and instrumental in our ability to achieve our mission. So we'll continue our partnerships in the community. The only one I'd highlight out of here is that we're building partnerships with Latino responsive providers right now. One of the things that we're going to start at the Nicollet Mall site is another Autism Day treatment. You know that we have an East African culturally responsive autism site here. We're going to start a Latino culturally responsive Autism Day treatment program at the Nicollet Mall site. So deeply grateful for partners in the community who want to be part of that with us. All right, I'm going to move forward and start introducing you to our home visiting program and to Kimberly. So St. David's Center has had a home visiting program since the mid-90s. We've grown. We started in partnership with Dr. Marty Erickson of the University of Minnesota. She had a program she called STEEP, and she was one of the first in the nation to really dig into, and our own university, to really dig into the power of parent-child home visiting from all the way from prenatal or birth through age 5, and what a difference that could make in kids' readiness for school, kids' the parent-child relationship. And since the mid-90s, we've grown from that one program to 5 with diverse funding. It's funded through city grants, county contracts, and state grants. It's therapeutic evidence-based models that inform and guide the work. And most importantly, I'd want you to know it's not about fixing children or fixing parents. It's about seeing them and joining them and focusing on supporting parent-child relationship for families who are facing challenging situations. So many of the families served live in the inner ring suburbs or the urban core. So having that work come out of our 2 sites downtown is a beautiful a beautiful way to have them accessible throughout the community. And I'd want you to know that this work has been, the staff have come and gone in terms of they're out in the community all the time, but they have had a home here and now at Nicollet Mall. And so it's an unknown piece of the work, perhaps to you. You see the kids, you see our classrooms in the building and the clinic on the new wing. But this is work that is a direct result of the offer you've made to us to have space here. And so staff team of 24 and families served in 2024, 428. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kimberly and thank her for her capable leadership and all that she has done as a home visitor and now as a leader of a home visiting team.
All right, thank you, Julie. So I just want to start off by sharing a little bit about what we do in all of our home visiting programs. What we share with families when we describe home visiting is that we're there for the caregiver as an emotional support. We provide developmental guidance about their young children, prenatal to age 4, and do some developmental screening. We also, at all of our home visits, provide toys and activities for parent-child interaction and really try to promote them interacting together and having that time together. We connect families to other community resources that might be needed. And we use the trusting relationship that we build with the caregivers as their tool for feeling safe and being able to grow and learn and then provide that type of care for their child as well. So when I think of home visiting, it does remind me of the word solidarity. And this is a quote that I have hanging in my office, and I try to come at this work thinking of walking alongside families. So 2 things specifically that also remind me about solidarity in home visiting is that we meet the parents where they are. So we're often in their living room, in the kitchen, on the floor with the children, but sometimes we're in a meeting room in their apartment building or at the library or taking them to a doctor's appointment. So wherever the family needs us to be, that's where we'll be with them. And the fact that we're impacting 2 generations at one time. So, we're there as that emotional support for the caregiver, but we know that young children are completely dependent on their parents. And so all cognitive development, social emotional development, their kind of blueprint for relationships in the future comes from that parent-child relationship. So we're supporting the parents in order to impact the trajectory of both the parent and the young child. So as Julie said, we've had 30 years of home visiting at St. David's Center. And throughout that time, and I've been a home visitor for 13 years, we've come across many caregivers that have significant mental health symptoms. And it's not always true, but often we have found that these caregivers are more socially isolated, and they may have more difficulty connecting to community resources. And at times their symptoms could impact their ability to connect or respond to their child's needs. So we, in the summer of 2023, got the opportunity to apply for some grant funding from the Minnesota Department of Health called Promising Practices in Home Visiting. And the agency leadership and I thought that we could maybe use that funding to meet the needs of caregivers specifically with mental health diagnoses, and use a model that I had been trained in, a therapy model that we call attachment and biobehavioral catch-up. We call it ABC for short. This is a very highly researched intervention and found to be effective in promoting the healthy outcomes of children, both short-term and long-term. So I want to share just a 3-minute video with you that I think illustrates really well what we do in ABC, and then I'll talk some more about what we do specifically in our program.
It's hard to care for someone when you're stressed out and everything around you is broken and going wrong. I couldn't be the mother that they needed me to be.
ABC is an intervention that targets parents of children that have experienced adversity. We see that parents not only change right following the intervention, but that these changes are sustained over time.
This is easily the most effective intervention I have ever implemented or been part of. It is also nationally known as one of the most evidence-based interventions out there. Seen at both the behavioral and biological level, which is pretty amazing.
Good job! We think in-the-moment commenting is really the active ingredient of ABC.
And I like how you're kind of letting her take control, right? You're letting her do it, right?
So as they are smiling at their child, we say, great job delighting in him. And then we tell them why that's important. So we say, like, that's something that is really going to help his confidence, his self-esteem. This little tiny thing that you're doing right here in front of me, that is something that has a long-term impact.
Oh, that's nice. She starts to cry and you pick up, that's just what she needs.
That is what's different about this intervention. That we very specifically in the first 2 weeks don't say suggestions of what you should do differently. Don't point out what someone's doing wrong. We just tell you what you're doing right. And everyone's doing something right.
Yay! The ABC program has enlightened me. So there's things that I really didn't understand, and there's other ways of parenting children that are new to me. Like, everything was new to me.
So I think the parent coach's job is to kind of empower them and remind them that they're nurturing and following the lead and smiling and delighting in their child. They know that those things are powerful.
I like to take as an example a mom who lives in a motel room, who has a horrible environment to live in. And yet, that mom can be sensitive and nurturing to her child, and that child's entire world changes as the result. And what we know is that having this interactive partner is key to brain development, behavioral development, and to developing a secure attachment.
My daughter told me that I'm a nice mommy now, which felt good and kind of stung at the same time, but it's like, you know what? I'm better, and so are they.
Okay, so as the video talked about, we're highly trained in this model to observe parent-child interaction in our home visits and then comment on them, those interactions. So these bulleted points are kind of the main points of what we're trying to promote and the ideas that we're teaching about to the caregivers in this model. So I want to give kind of an example of how we would comment on something like nurturance. So say I'm at a home visit and there's a toddler walking around and she falls over and bumps her head on the coffee table. And the mom goes over and picks her up and pats her back and says, "Are you okay?" So me as the home visitor, I would say like, "Oh, Mom, that was such a lovely example of nurturance. She was crying and you picked her up and rubbed her back. That helps her know you're always going to be there for her." Right? So we're doing a lot of this really like positive pointing out in the moment of what they're doing well. Another example would be following the lead. So we're really trying to promote caregivers noticing what their child is doing and joining them in that interaction. So say, you know, a young child has 2 blocks and they're banging them together, and the parent takes 2 blocks and bangs them together as well and kind of imitates what the child's doing. We would say like, "Wow, great following the lead. Like that makes her feel so important." Another idea that we talk about is calming. We talk a lot about calming with toddlers, with meltdowns and tantrums. How can the parent keep themselves calm and help the child calm? We talk a lot about setting boundaries, and refraining from being scary to your children. We don't want the caregiver to be scary to the child because they're who the child depends on. They need to be able to come to them. And we do a lot of reflection in this model as well. So thinking about the way that the caregiver was raised, what they want to do the same and what they want to do differently than what they experienced. And then having an awareness of what comes up for them automatically when their child has big emotions, and if they want to do something differently, how to have an awareness of that and choose to do it differently. I also want to say I do feel like ABC is also a good example of solidarity in that, like they said in the video, we focus on a lot of positive comments. We also do a lot of asking the parents about their ideas about the concepts we're talking about and having a conversation about their beliefs and values and finding where we can meet that with what we're sharing with them that the research shows. So at St. David Center, we were able to build the Sensitive Parenting Support Home Visiting Program and build the ABC intervention within this home visiting program that we do for 6 to 9 months, and have a few other pieces of the program that I feel like support caregivers with mental health diagnoses. So we do assess the child's development and connect them to early childhood intervention services as needed. And we help assess caregivers what supports they already have in their lives, what protective factors do they have, where are they missing things, and can we promote more of those? And then we move into the ABC intervention, and at the end of our services, connect them with ongoing services that they may want. So often that has been our other longer term home visiting services at St. David Center, a mental health therapist, or school district intervention for their children. So with all of that, I want to share a short case example. So I'm the program director for sensitive parenting, but I also still do some home visiting. So this is a family that I served. And I did change the names of this family for their privacy. So I was working with a mom, May, who had a 2-year-old son, a newborn baby, and was married. And she was referred to me with a history of anxiety and depression, both of which became more severe in the postpartum period of having both of her children. So on the referral, she said, "I have lost my bond with them." And this fear came from after having her newborn baby, her depression and anxiety symptoms were so severe that she actually moved out of the home where her husband and 2-year-old were living and went to go live with some friends with the baby. She just felt so overwhelmed by all of the needs of the whole family that she moved out for a period of time. So she was worried she had lost her bond, especially with her 2-year-old. And she, at the beginning of the intervention, described to me times when she was so down that she would cry most of the day and sit on the floor, and her son would crawl around her in circles and not be able to respond to him. And said things like, "I'll never be a good mom," right? So she's having a lot of severe symptoms and feeling really, really down about herself. So we began ABC, and at that time she had just moved back in with her husband and the 2-year-old, so it's all 4 of them in the home together. And one thing I really enjoyed about visiting with May was that frequently during our home visits, we'd be talking about one of the concepts, and she would pause me to go grab a notebook and be like, "I need to write this down." She was so excited and just wanted to soak up all of the information. So a few of the things that she shared that really were impactful for her. One was that the idea of following the lead. She said, I kind of thought my 2-year-old was just fine and I should leave him alone when he is playing on his own. But he was having a lot of meltdowns that were really overwhelming to her. And she said, I figured out that if I just, look over at what he's doing and describe what he's doing or sit down and play with him for a few minutes, he stays a lot more calm and he sticks with that activity a lot longer. And even just, when he says, "Mom, Mom, Mom," and instead of needing to escalate yelling "Mom" or his behavior to grab her attention, when she is able to follow his lead and turn and respond to him quickly, it prevented a lot of meltdowns. She also was very reflective about her experience of being parented, of when she was raised and what she wanted to do differently, and how some of her experiences were impacting her internal messages. And so by the end of our time working together, she wrote on our feedback form, what we can do is to heal ourselves first and not pass the trauma from generation to generation. So she really understood that idea. So I think all of these factors made her feel more confident as a caregiver, and I think they made her feel more hopeful. So while we're not doing mental health therapy with the caregivers, I think it is really powerful to feel successful as a caregiver and to feel that joy and delight that we're promoting between parent and child, that are one piece of recovery from a severe mental health disorder. So by the time that we, I think at our last session, she said, I know I have a bond with my kids and that it will never go away. So I was just thinking about some ways that you as people at Westminster can be in solidarity with caregivers who have a mental health diagnosis. In our society today, especially I think white society, we're not living in like communal settings with extended family where caregivers have a lot of support. We don't have that village that it takes to raise a child. And like I said, families are pretty isolated. So if there's someone in your life that's having a young child, be the village. You know, be someone who comes over and holds the baby while mom takes a shower, or you know, helps provide that healthy food that they need. Anything you can do to just like be present and be hands on the ground is helpful. If there's somebody in your life who has a young child, point out what they're doing well. You know, help fill that emotional cup and be a voice of positivity for them to, you know, help with some of the negative feelings they might be having. And if you see someone in the community struggling, like for example, you know, at Target and there's a toddler having a meltdown, just go over to the parent and say, it's okay. Like we've all been there. You're doing your best. I think the positive feedback for caregivers can be just one piece of feeling more successful. So, all right, thank you. I'm going to hand it back to Julie.
Thanks, Kimberly. Just to wrap, you know, I hope you see the importance of this work, and though not visible in the church when we're here, it's work that's done as a result of having strong partners like Westminster. And if we think about one of the things that Dr. Marty Erickson taught me early on in this home visiting work when we started it, was that we develop a working model early in our life about how the world's going to be with us, how relationships are going to be. That parent-child relationship becomes our working model for what we expect from other people. So families who receive, who have a working model that is based on some really hard parenting, come into that parenting with that working model. And if we can help them shape that through these kind of interventions, and then help those children develop a working model to expect adults to be attuned and sensitive and set boundaries, those become their working models as they enter school. So thank you, Kimberly, for your years of work and for sharing bringing to life what that looks like, what that intervention looks like, and how it looks in a family's life.
Well, great. We want to open it up to any comments, conversation, observations, and exactly doing what you're doing right now by raising your hand. We'll have, is Eric or is Phil or Kathleen, are you doing the mic? Okay. Here's a microphone. Kathleen, you can use this one. And then I'll invite, either of you to, just depending upon how the question goes. Thank you.
Thank you for describing your great work. My name is Dwayne Cronky, member at Westminster. I have not been involved in any of your marvelous work. My question is a different related subject. As we all know, President Trump is threatening mass deportations, breaking up families, arresting them, doing a lot of horrible things. What, if anything, can St. David's do and Westminster do to help protect those people and give them support? I don't know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Julie, I'll invite you to come up and respond.
As you can imagine, I've been thinking a lot about this in the last week. I think all of us knew that this was possible, and yet to see it happen, there are words. We in our services on site, we most likely don't have a ton of families for whom are undocumented, because our services are primarily covered by insurance that they have to get through Medicaid. So, but in our home visiting programs, lots of families, and we don't have to check for that, and it's a free service to those dear families. So we're evaluating right now what we can do. What we are doing for sure is we have a deep commitment to these families and a deep commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. We are doubling down on that. People need to feel like they belong and diversity welcomed and included. And so our first commitment is, as the federal government and surrounding businesses say, I'm out, we're in, and we're even more deeply in. And then just supporting one family at a time. I'll be meeting with our attorney this week to say what stance can we take, if any, because our families are served out of their homes. It really will be our work around their separations will be helping them find their way, getting them connected to legal where we can. So we'll do what we can, but we haven't formed a intentional plan yet.
Good morning. In the ABC home visiting program, I know there is not an average, but if you could say how many visits are in the program, or how long does the home visitor work with the family?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we meet with families weekly for about an hour, and in sensitive parenting, the model with ABC, it's 6 to 9 months. And then we often are connecting them to longer. Our other home visiting models can be 2 to 4 years, but they're not as therapeutic based. So we're often connecting them to those models after our 6 to 9 months.
First of all, thank you, all three of you, for your presentations. Just powerful. I hesitate to ask a downer question, but I want to follow up on something that Dwayne asked, and that is, I never thought I would say, I have to ask a question that, is it possible, or even something that you're going to have to be considering, that somehow your Somali-based program and your future program with the Latino community could be impacted by the DEI controversies?
I can't imagine they will be. I think we're, in terms of the federal government, we're on small scale to them. And though our Medicaid funding flows from the federal government to Minnesota, and we bill Medicaid, I cannot imagine that our state would allow that. I can tell you, I'm sure glad I live in Minnesota, and we serve out of Minnesota right now. And our government our state can make some choices in that. And so I'm hoping, my gut tells me we're insulated by our state and the distance we have from the federal government. We have no federal oversight per se directly. So that's that's the hope I'm holding.
Yeah, I would just like to pile on the accolades for the work you're doing in terms of how important it is, not only families, but our community as a whole. And thank you so much. Realizing that the work that you do requires a lot of professional education and training, I'm wondering what kind of opportunities or how do you use volunteers in your organization?
Do you want me to go ahead, Sarah, or you want to? Excuse me. We have used volunteers in a variety of ways, and as we look to the future, we want to really continue to think about what that could look like. We have grounds. I mean, just some simple things like we have grounds to take care of. Certainly at our Minnetonka site, we have groups that come out and help with our grounds. We'll do a day of mulching the playground, and it sounds like a simple thing, but it's actually cash out the door if we don't have those kinds of volunteers. So we have several groups that come around all year long. We're also really thinking about as we go into expand into the Nicollet Mall site. We've been thinking about how do we use the opportunity on site to think about our kids often need to practice being in public successfully. They've had some negative experiences in settings. So one of our leaders on our community relations team is thinking about how to offer opportunities. Like, do we have a little market one day where people come on site and think and pretend like that our kids are grocery shopping. So we're beginning to think a little more creatively about volunteers. And as we do, I would like to work with Kathleen to explore those opportunities and share them with Westminster. What we've struggled with how to bring people into classrooms, given its intervention and therapeutic, but sort of how do we bring the kids out in a way? So know that we're thinking about opportunities, and but it can be as simple as coming and reading a story that in one of our classrooms. So if you had hope for doing some volunteerism, I'd encourage you to connect with Kathleen and Sarah's our connection here. So yeah, what's that? Okay, great.
Thank you. We have a hard stop in just a couple minutes because we lose the live stream because worship, they have to set up for worship. So we do have a real hard stop. I want to thank you, Julie, Kimberly, Sarah. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything you do. And thank you for being such a light in our community. It really makes a difference to those of us at Westminster and well beyond. So thank you very much. So next week, we have another forum, and I wanted to let you know what it is because it sounds pretty interesting. Our Palestinian partnership team, along with special guests, thank you, there we go, special guests from an organization based in Bethlehem and operating in the West Bank, where they are working to heal the trauma experienced by Palestinian children and families who are dealing with the Israeli occupation and the long-term conflict there. This organization was founded by a member of our partner congregation, one of our partners like our Cuba partnership, etc. This is our partnership with Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, they will be presenting via Zoom, and then we'll have a local representative from the U.S.-based organization that helps to publicize and support their work from here. I'll just say a few years ago, I went on the last Palestine trip. I know Ronnie did, maybe there's some others in here, and we had the opportunity to worship at Christmas Lutheran and meet these people. It's phenomenal, so I encourage you to attend if you can. So we look forward to welcoming you then, and again, thank you for everything today. Okay? Thanks.